classic Battletech, the metric by which most characters are going to be judged is whether or not they're a mech warrior. And if so, the direct question thereafter tends to be about their gunnery and piloting skill. The difference in gunnery skill between you and your opponent can be the difference between victory and defeat. The gunnery skill rating is just one part of calculating what's known as the 2-hit number, which is the number a player needs to meet or exceed on a roll of 2d6 in order to strike his target with a shot. Now, this system wasn't always, well, intuitive. But today we have the Gator method, which is a system so incredible I honestly can't imagine how I got along so far without it. We also have things like movement dice, and I find most folks can calculate their own numbers without my help in just a few seconds after they've learned. But you probably know by now that I'm about to say it wasn't always done that way. How did you know I was going to say that? Before that, you were either taking notes in the margins of your sheets or relying on memory. Not only did you have to heavily rely on memory to get through a normal turn, but resolving the weapon attack phase also took a lot longer on average. So, I think I ran, yeah. Yeah, I would have had to have run to get there. Okay, and what's your movement? I think it's, 2, yeah. Yeah, I had to have covered 5 hexes. Okay, so that's another +2. And what's the range? 10. So that's medium range. All right, so +6. Wait, what? Yeah, if you tried to play Battletech the way it was done in the late 80s and early 90s, you'd most likely suffer from some sort of sticker shock if you looked up all the modifiers for the different range brackets, especially if you are only used to the way we do things now. So, let's check into that now. As any veteran player from the 80s and early 90s can tell you, the penalties for firing at various ranges were vastly different in the original iterations of the game. Firing at short range incurred an eye-opening penalty of +4. A shot taking place at the medium range bracket would add +6, and long range fire would add a staggering +8 to the roll. Wait, what? Since a gunnery skill of 4 has always been considered the skill of the average everyday mech warrior, if a pilot had a gunnery skill of 4, this did not affect the number they'd need to roll for scoring a hit in any way. It wasn't until a pilot's gunnery skill was set to more or less than 4 that the gunnery skill affected a weapon attack roll at all. At that point, 4 became the tent pole by which all other gunnery skills would be judged. The farther away from 4 you set the gunnery skill, the better or worse you'd be making the pilot, just like today. Except with the way the system worked at the time, if your pilot's gunnery skill was set to less than 4, you would subtract the difference between your pilot's gunnery skill and 4 from the total needed to score a hit. Conversely, if your pilot's gunnery skill was more than 4, you'd add the difference to the total needed instead. Aside from the range modifiers in the gunnery skill system, almost everything that you're used to from today still applied back then. However, partial cover was a whole other animal, but that's an entirely different topic for a whole other video. If you want one on that, you know what to do. So, if you do things as we do them today, you would have a 4 gunner, on the run, with a target movement modifier of +2, with nothing in the way, at medium range. You'd need a 10 or better to score a hit in this case. If you had a pilot with a gunnery skill of 4 and did things the old way, you'd have a 4 gunner, on the run, with a target movement modifier of +2, with nothing in the way, at medium range. Still 10. And if you move the gunnery skill up or down in the new system, it will produce the same results as it would if you did things under the old system. Today, movement dice and the Gator method are 2 of the single best mnemonic devices I've seen invented for the game in the nearly 3 decades I've been playing. I remember very clearly in the mid-90s, either keeping detailed notes or struggling to remember what mech number 7 out of 12 did for that turn. We didn't have movement dice until much later, and if I recall correctly, that was a player creation that wound up being codified into the rules. If you aren't using them, you should be. And the final step on this journey is the incorporation of the much maligned reaction phase. From the early days of the game until the late 90s, torso turning and turret actions were controlled in a separate phase before making weapon attacks. This was called the reaction phase, and it was incorporated into the weapon attack phase in the BattleTech Master Rules, published in 1997, having these actions simply become part of declaring a weapon attack. Now imagine having to declare each and every torso twist back and forth in turn, and then have to turn around and do the exact same thing for all your weapons fire. You see what I mean when I say this stuff used to take a while back in the day? And as a funny aside, when FASA put out CityTech 2nd Edition in 1994, they also re-released BattleTech 3rd Edition in a similarly thick packaging so they could sell 2 games at once. But what they didn't do is they didn't change over the gunnery skill system or the range modifiers into the new system they were using at that time, which would have been the BattleTech Compendium Rules of Warfare, and those rules would have been the same rules that CityTech 2nd Edition was using. So, what you had at that time was a product that was sitting on the shelf brand new next to another product sitting on the shelf brand new, and one of these was instantly apocryphal the second you opened the shrink wrap. Guess which one? Regardless of how things happened at the time, I think the silver lining to this cloud, and the takeaway here, is that despite how different some aspects of BattleTech used to be, you can still pick up any edition of the game and run it with the rules as written. Once you got used to the changeover, you would have the same experience as someone who was using whatever the most current set of rules is at that time. However clunky the older rules were, they definitely give you an appreciation for the way things are done now, and it's also a great thing to see the way people play being incorporated into the game as part of the rules instead of a company doubling down and refusing to change. Alright BattleTech fans, I sure hope you've enjoyed our little walk down memory lane. And if you liked this video and you want to see more videos just like it, do us a big favor, hit that subscribe bell down there and turn on all notifications so you can find out exactly where Battlebound is going to turn up next. And remember, Battlebound has a Patreon at patreon.com/battlebound. Sign up today to enjoy those benefits tomorrow. I'm Tuck Davian with my broadcast partner Kiki, and we'll see you next time right here on the Space Lanes.
Be sure to smash our like button and subscribe to our channel.
Crowdfunding is when lots of people give you small amounts of money to help your passion project come to life.